Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishvanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Vishvasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Vashchatya Deshatarine Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatam Vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to Lord Chaitanya, all glories to Lord Nityananda, all glories to Advaita Chandra, and all glories to all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya.
So we were in the Madhya Lila chapter 10 discussing Lord's return to Jagannath Puri. Lord has come back to Puri. He has been given the quarters and so many devotees have come to see him. And in the last session, we saw that each devotee was being personally glorified and introduced to Chaitanya Mahāprabhu. And we will proceed in this chapter a little further. So we will get into the section where Swarup Damodar's arrival at Jagannath Puri is mentioned. Swarup Damodar Goswami comes and meets Lord Chaitanya Mahāprabhu. So a little more about who is Swarup Damodar is described in this section. Aradine Aila Swarup Damodara Prabhur Atyanta Marmi Rasera Sagara.
Swarup Damodar also arrived the next day. He was a very intimate friend of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's and he was an ocean of transcendental mellows. So here, Swarup Damodar is described that he arrived the next day. And what are the qualities of this personality? That he was a very intimate friend of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which means he was a very, very close, intimate associate. And at the same time, he was an ocean of transcendental mellows. Rasera Sagar. So the following verses actually will reveal the glories of this astounding personality and will be swept away by those glories.
Purushottama Charitamrta Nama Purva Shame Navadvipe Chila Teha Prabhura Charane. when Swarup Damodar was residing at Navadvip under the shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his name was Purushottam Acharya. So actually Swarup Damodar was already present there in Navadvip when Mahaprabhu was there. And that time his name, as it is mentioned, Purva Ashrame. So now he has taken sannyas, but before taking sannyas, his name was Swarup Damodar.
Purushottam.
Sorry, Purushottam Acharya, before taking sannyas.
प्रभुर संन्यास देखी उन्मत्त हाना संन्यास ग्रहण कैला वाराणसी गया. After seeing that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the renounced order, Purushottam Acharya became like a madman and immediately went to Varanasi to take sannyas. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was a very intimate associate with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Navadvip, and suddenly Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted sannyas, and this really shook him. Purushottam Acharya, it's mentioned that Unnamatahana, he just became mad, and then he quickly rushed to Varanasi to take sannyas, which was a great seat of Mayavadi sannyasis. Chaitanya Nanda Guru Tandra Agya Dilen Tandre Vedanta Padiya Padao Samasta Lokere.
At the conclusion of his sannyas, his spiritual master, Chaitanya Nanda Bharati, ordered him read the Vedanta Sutra and teach it to all others. So he goes to Varanasi, he takes sannyas by Chaitanya Nanda Bharati, and this is the instruction which his sannyas guru gives him, that read the Vedanta Sutra and teach to everybody else also. Parama Virakta Teha Parama Pandita Kayamane Ashriyache Shri Krishna Charita.
Swarup Damodar was a great renunciant as well as a great learned scholar. With heart and soul, he took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. So just now we see that his spiritual master ordered him that you read and study Vedanta and you teach it to others. But Swarup Damodar was a very, very great personality. He was a great renunciant. So actually renunciation is not just an external act where one externally wears a dress, carries a danda, changes his name. So these are all external symptoms of renunciation, but Swarup Damodar was internally greatly renounced from any type of sense gratification, any type of material desire. So he was already a great renunciant, and he was also a great learned scholar. And because of these two amazing qualities, with his heart and soul, he had actually taken shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna.
Nishchinte Krishna Jibareita Karane Unmade Karila Teha Sannyasa Grahane. He was very enthusiastic to worship Sri Krishna without disturbance, and therefore almost in madness he accepted the sannyas order. So this madness was that he wanted to dedicate himself to Krishna completely without any deviation, and for that desire he actually took sannyas so that there is no disturbance.
So what happens is when one is in Grahastha ashram, there are so many duties, responsibilities. But anyway, Swarup Damodar was a brahmachari. He was a Naishtik brahmachari. So what happens is that when one accepts sannyas, all the relationships are actually given up. All mundane material relationships are given up. So there is no other kind of disturbance. And nobody actually disturbs a sannyasi that way for any purpose. So he was very eager that, he can be very focused in his worship of the Lord.
Sannyasa Karila Shikha Sutra Tyaga Rupa Yoga Patana Maila Swarupa. Upon accepting sannyas, Purushottam Acharya followed the regulative principles by giving up his tuft of hair and sacred thread. But he did not accept the saffron colored dress. Also, he did not accept a sannyasi title, but remained a Naishtika brahmachari. So now here is the description that though he took sannyas, but then there are certain things, certain aspects, like a sannyasi, he takes saffron clothes, and he accept the title also. So for sannyasi, there is a different title. But this person, Purushottam Acharya, he had actually taken sannyas not for any formality, but because he wanted to be completely focused and dedicated to the Supreme Lord Krishna. So all the other external things of sannyas ashram he did not accept, because that also he considered as a disturbance in his devotion to Krishna. So that is how he completely dedicated himself to Krishna, because renunciation means not doing anything but serving the Supreme Lord Krishna. So with that in mind, though he was following the rules and regulations of the sannyas ashram, but externally he did not accept the robes and other things. Guru thani agya magi, aila nila chale, ratri dine Krishna prema ananda vivale.
After taking permission from his sannyas guru, Swarup Damodar went to Nilachal and accepted the shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then all day and night, in ecstatic love for Krishna, he enjoyed transcendental mellows in the loving service of the Lord. So Swarup name was given to him, the name after sannyas, and Damodar was a name which was given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and therefore he was known now as Swarup Damodar or Damodar Swarup. So he took permission from his sannyas guru, and then he went to Nilachal, Jagannath Puri, took shelter of Lord Chaitanya, and there now he was completely free from all designations, and just all day and night he was absorbed in Krishna consciousness.
Panditera avadhi vakya nahi karo sane, nirjan rahe loka sab nahi jane. Swarup Damodar was the limit of all learned scholarship, but he did not exchange words with anyone. He simply remained in a solitary place, and no one could understand where he was. So though he was so learned, but then again he did not wanted to interact with anybody from the external world, because that would disturb his meditation and focus on Krishna. So he confined himself to a solitary place, and he would not talk or reach out to others. Krishna rasa tattva vitta deha prema rupa sakshat Mahaprabhura dvitiya swarupa.
Sri Swarup Damodar was the personification of ecstatic love, fully cognizant of the transcendental mellows in relationship with Krishna. He directly represented Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as his second expansion. So this verse is such a beautiful glorification of Swarup Damodar, that if there is ecstatic love for Krishna, the personification was Swarup Damodar. He was fully cognizant of the transcendental mellows in relationship. So Krishna is the Rasa Vigraha, Akhila Rasamrita Murti. So he's the reservoir of all the different rasas, the relish, the taste of all the relationships, and Swarup Damodar could taste those relationships in relationship to Krishna, and thus he directly represented Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a second expansion.
Grantha shloka gita ke ha Prabhu pashe aane, Swarupa pariksha kaila pache Prabhu shune. If someone wrote a book or composed a verses and songs and wanted to recite them before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Swarup Damodar would first examine them and then correctly present them. Only then would Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu agree to listen. So this was such a wonderful and intimate service which Swarup Damodar was doing for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So his role was that anybody, like there were so many devotees, and they would compose certain verses or write song in glorification of Krishna, of course. Yet, whether it is correct philosophically or not, first Swarup Damodar would go through it and verify it. So if there is any mistake, as it is mentioned, then correctly present them. So he would try to make those corrections and make that work presentable to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he was the first filter, we say.
He is a chief editor.
Chief editor. So he would edit, he would proofread, he would edit, and then final version would come to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So actually, if now we will read in the following chapters and in Madhya Lila also, we would understand Swarup Damodar and Rai Ramananda. They are the two very, very intimately connected with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They are the ones who would understand the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and they would sort of pacify when Mahaprabhu would be very agitated in the feelings of ecstatic feelings of separation from the Supreme Lord Krishna. So they were the ones who would pacify, and their eternal position is compared to Lalita Sakhi and Vishakha Sakhi, Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Rai. भक्ति सिद्धांत विरुद्ध आर्यरसभासा शोणितेन हाय प्रभु चित्तिर उल्लासा.
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was never pleased to hear books or verses opposed to the conclusive statements of devotional service. The Lord did not like hearing rasabhas, the overlapping of transcendental mellows. So this reveals the actual issue. So when somebody is writing some verses or writing a song or writing a book, so two things have to happen. One, it should be as per Bhakti Siddhanta, the principles of Bhakti. And sometimes because people made mistakes or they were not themselves very clear, so they will write something which was Bhakti Siddhanta Viruddha or opposed to the conclusive statements of devotional service. So we understand that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu revealed and he taught all of us about Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. Say how there is the simultaneous oneness and difference, the inconceivable simultaneous oneness and difference between the Lord and his energies. And when we understand this conclusion, then we see that all the apparent contradictions in the scriptures are resolved. Right? So, so this was very important. This was the most important. So, Bhakti Siddhanta Virudh. So, this is what Swarup Damodar will actually go through that. And if there is anything opposed to the principles of devotion, then he will reject it or he will correct it. And the second thing is Rasabha. So, we understand that there are 5 different primary rasas which one can taste in relationship with Krishna. So the rasas are Shantras, Dasiras, Sakhiras, Vatsalyaras, and Madhuriras. So these are the 5 rasas, and in these rasas there are very special taste of love of God. So these rasas remain, and of course the lower rasa is contained in the high rasa, like the Shantras is Shantras, but Dasiras, for example, is included in Sakhya. Sakhya is included in the feelings are included in Vatsalya, and the highest is Madhurya. So what all is experienced lower rasas is included, but there is no overlapping. So for example, the Vatsalya ras and Madhurya ras, they are 2 separate rasas. One who has Vatsalya feelings for the Lord is not mixed up with conjugal feelings with the Lord. So that rasa bhas or the contamination of the rasas is not there. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not like hearing the rasa bhas or overlapping of transcendental mellows. So these are the 2 things which Swarup Damodar would take care, and whatever is being presented to Lord.
अतएव स्वरूपागे कार्य परीक्षणा शुद्धय यदि प्रभुरे करना श्रवणा. It was the practice of Swarup Damodar Goswami to examine all literatures and find out whether their conclusions were correct. Only then would he allow them to be heard by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this was the foremost responsibility of Swarup Damodar Goswami, because he was very expert. He was expert in the Vedas, he was expert in the Shastra, he was also very expert in music. So all these things combined, and this was the responsibility which Swarup Damodar was shouldering. Vidyapati Chandi Dasa Shri Gita Govinda Eiti na Gite Kara na Prabhurananda.
Shri Swarup Damodar used to read the poems of Vidyapati and Chandidas and Jayadev Goswami's Sri Gita Govinda. He used to make Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very happy by singing these songs. So these are bona fide songs, bona fide literature, and so these literatures do not have those 2 issues. Sangite Gandharva Sama Shastre Brihaspati Damodara Sama Ara Nahi Mahamati.
Swarup Damodar was as expert a musician as the Gandharvas, and in scriptural discussion he was just like Brihaspati, the priest of the heavenly gods. Therefore, it is to be concluded that there was no great personality quite like Swarup Damodar. So this is how he would beautifully present the wonderful scriptures, because scripturally he was very sound and musically he is compared to the Gandharvas. Advaita Nityanandir Parama Priyatma Shrivasadi Bhakta Ganir Haya Prana Sama.
So now let's see that apart from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what were his dealings with other devotees? Sri Swarup Damodar was very dear to Advaita Acharya Nityanand Prabhu, and he was the life and soul of all the devotees headed by Shivas. So we see that it was not just the Lord, but all the Lord's associates also were very loving and affectionate to him.
Se Damodar asi dandavata haila charane padiya shloka padite lagila. When Swarup Damodar came to Jagannath Puri, he fell flat before the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahāprabhu, offering him obeisances and reciting a verse. So here Swarup Damodar recited a very, very beautiful verse praising Sriman Chaitanya Mahāprabhu. And this verse actually talks about the 10 aspects. So he is glorifying Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy from 10 directions or 10 aspects. So first one is easily drives away all material lamentation.
Second, the mercy of Lord Chaitanya purifies everything. And we see that that's why Srila Prabhupada has mentioned, we saw in the Madhya Lila that Prabhupada said that whenever we go for any preaching, we should chant the Panch Tattva mantra. By chanting Lord Chaitanya's name, everyone is purified.
The next is awakens transcendental bliss. So the transcendental emotions and the ecstasy is awakened just by remembering Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Next is it mitigates the disagreements of scriptures. So this is we just discussed that how the Achintya Bheda Tattva which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained, and by understanding this inconceivable simultaneous oneness and difference, the apparent disagreements between the scriptures, because there will be some statements within the scripture which will contradict, sometimes there are disagreements between two different scriptures. By understanding this philosophy given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all these disagreements vanish.
Then it distributes all transcendental mellows. It explains, it clarifies, and it distributes the transcendental mellows or transcendental relationships with the Supreme Lord.
And of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his form, his name, his qualities, his pastimes caused such jubilation of heart.
And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is actually synonymous to devotional service. So whatever we talk about devotional service, that is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took that form and came to this material world to establish how to be a bhakta, how to be a devotee, and how to perform devotional service. So that's how he always stimulates devotional service.
Along with full ecstasy and joy.
And then he is an ocean of mercy. So there is no condition. Like Krishna says, Sarva Dharman Parityagya Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja. So Krishna keeps the condition that give up all variety of religion, surrender unto me only, and then I will protect you. But here is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, no rules, no conditions, completely unconditional ocean of mercy.
And awakens good fortune. So it is stated in Chaitanya Charitamrta that easy things become difficult if we forget Lord Chaitanya, and difficult things become easy just by remembering him.
Uthana Mahaprabhu Kaila Alingana Dui Jane Prema Veshe Hoila Achetana.
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu raised Swarup Damodar to his feet and embraced him. They both became ecstatic in love and fell unconscious. So here we see an intimate associate of Lord Chaitanya, and both of them had such so much of love arose in their hearts that they fell unconscious.
तुम्ही ये आसीबे आजी स्वप्ने ते देखिला भाला हैला अंधा येना दुई नेत्र पाइला. So let's see what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying. Mahaprabhu is telling that I saw in a dream that you were coming. And so this is very auspicious. So now we become so jubilant when we get a dream of Supreme Lord. Like hardly few times in our whole life we get the dream of Supreme Lord. And here is the Supreme Lord describing his dream. And he's telling that in my dream I saw that you were coming and you have actually come. So it is very auspicious. I have been like a blind man, but your coming here restores my vision. So how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is glorifying Swarup Damodar, that you are like an eye to me, like how the blind person needs vision. So similarly, you are that vision. Through you, I will see everything. So that's how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is.
And that's why we chant this mantra. Om Agyana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. So like the spiritual master with the torchlight of knowledge, he opens our eyes which are blinded by illusion, by ignorance. So similarly, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saying, of course, this is his great mercy upon Swarup Damodar.
Swarup kahe Prabhu mora shama aparadha toma chhadi anyatra genu karinu pramada. Swarup said, my dear Lord, please excuse my offense. I gave up your company to go elsewhere and that was my great mistake. So where did Swarup go? Swarup went to Varanasi to take sannyas. So now he is repenting that why did I leave you and went here and there? I should have come along with you or come to you. So he is asking forgiveness for that out of his humility. Tomara charane mora nahi prema lesha Toma chhadi papi muni genu anya desha.
So this is how a devotee thinks. My dear Lord, I do not possess even a trace of love for your lotus feet. If I did, how could I have gone to another country? I am therefore a most sinful man. So this personality was a very intimate associate of the Lord. Even before Lord took sannyas and came to Nilachal in Navdeep, he was a very close associate. But I mean, look at us. What love we have for the Lord. We have abandoned Lord. We have abandoned our relationship with him. We have abandoned his lotus feet. We don't even remember when. Because we are, since Anadikal, we are in this material world. This is our situation. So, how much sinful we are.
And how he has abandoned everything to be with the Lord. Moni toma chhadila tumi more na chhadila kripa pasha gale bandhi charane anila. I gave up your company, but you did not give me up. By your rope of mercy, you have bound me back by the neck and brought me back again to your lotus feet. So how out of humility he is telling that though I gave up your company and I went to Varanasi and I was wandering here and there, but you still remember me. How? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is mentioning that he dreamt of him today. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is still remembering him and he's saying, by your rope of mercy, you have bound me by the neck and brought me back again to your lotus feet.
So this is how Lord does. We have forgotten him, but he has not forgotten us. Traveling with us, body after body, as Paramatma, ready to help, willing to help. And then he sends the spiritual master and the scriptures in the material world to help us.
Tabe Swarup kaila nitai charana vandana Nityananda Prabhu kaila prema alingana.
Swarup Damodar then worshipped the lotus feet of Nityananda Prabhu, and Nityananda Prabhu in turn embraced him in ecstasy of love. So everybody was delighted to see Swarup Damodar. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first embraced, and after that loving interaction, then Swarup Damodar was embraced by Lord Nityananda.
Jagannātha Mukunda Shankar Sarvabhauma Saba Sange Yatha Yogya Karila Milana. After worshipping Nityanand Prabhu, Swarup Damodar met Jagannāth, Mukunda, Shankar and Sarvabhauma as was befitting. So depending on their relationship, some were equal, some were senior, some were junior. So accordingly, actually Swarup Damodar was meeting everyone.
Paramananda Purir Kaila Charana Vandana Puri Gosai Tanre Kaila Prema Alingana. Swarup Damodar also offered his worshipful prayers at the lotus feet of Paramananda Puri, who in turn embraced him in ecstatic love. Mahaprabhu Dila Tanre Nibrit Vasagara Jaladi Paricharya Lagi Dila Ekankara.
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then gave Swarup Damodar residence in a solitary place and ordered a servant to serve him with a supply of water and other necessities. So Swarup Damodar was so special and understanding his needs, so he prefers to stay in a solitary place. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accordingly arranged a residence for him. He also assigned a devotee servant to him so that all his requirements can be taken care of. And now getting into the next section. So here we will hear about Govinda and who is Govinda and why he comes to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and how he accepts him as his servant.
Aradina Sarva Bhauma Adi Bhakta Sange Vasiya Achena Mahaprabhu Krishna Katharange. The next day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sat with all the devotees headed by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and they discussed the pastimes of Krishna. So this is the life of devotees. Hena kale govindera haila agamana dandavata kari kahe vinaya vachana.
At that time, Govinda appeared on the scene, offered his respectful obeisances and spoke submissively. Ishvara Purira Bhritya Govind Mora Nama Puri Gosaira Agya Ainu Tomasthana.
I am the servant of Ishwar Puri. My name is Govinda. And following the orders of my spiritual master, I have come here. So here he is introducing that actually I am the servant of Ishwar Puri, the spiritual master of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he introduces his name, that my name is Govinda and I have come here on the orders of my spiritual master. Siddha Prapti Kale Gosai Agya Kaila More Krishna Chaitanya Katarahi Seviha Tahare.
Just before his departure from this mortal world to attain the highest perfection, Ishwar Puri told me that I should go to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and render service unto him. So now this personality, Govinda, he has come to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on the instruction of his spiritual master. Now Mahaprabhu and Govinda both had same spiritual master. So by that relationship, Govinda is actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's god brother. But now here he has come and he has come in the capacity of a servant. He is telling that Ishwar Prabhu has asked me to go and serve you.
Kashishwar Asi Bena Sabati Dekhiya Prabhu Agya Muni Ainu Toma Padedhana. Kashishwara will also come here after visiting all the holy places. However, following the orders of my spiritual master, I have hastily come to be present at your lotus feet. So here we see that the two devotees, the two disciples were to come here to assist Lord Chaitanya on the orders of the spiritual master. One has gone visiting other holy places, he would come after that. But Govinda immediately came to take shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya.
Gosai
Kahila Purishwar Vatsal Kare More Kripa Kare Mora Thani Pathaila Tumare.
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, my spiritual master Ishwar Puri always favors me with paternal affection. Therefore, out of his causeless mercy, he has sent you here. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu knows that his spiritual master is very fond of him. He's telling he takes care of me just like my father. He has a paternal affection for me. And because of that, he has sent you also here.
Eta Shuni Sarva Bhauma Prabhu Vidure puchila, Puri Gosai Shudra Seva, Kahe Tara Khila. After learning this, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya asked Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, why did Ishwar Puri keep a servant who comes from a Shudra family? So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was intrigued that why Ishwar Puri accepted a disciple from a Shudra family. And so he asked this question to to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Prabhu kahe Ishwar haya parama swatantra, Ishwarera kripa nahe veda paratantra.
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, both the the Supreme Personality of Godhead and my spiritual master Ishwar Puri are completely independent. They are param swatantra, completely swatantra. Therefore, neither the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead nor that of Ishwar Puri is subject to any Vedic rules and regulations. So generally it is a rule, it is a norm that the sannyasis, they generally don't have the servants from the Shudra class. So now, because Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya saw this, so then he asked that because Govinda is from Shudra, what do you say? Shudra class. From Shudra class. So he's asking why he has this disciple who's his personal servant and who's a Shudra. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is explaining so beautifully that there is no control. They are completely independent. Who? Supreme Lord, and he's placing his spiritual master at the same pedestal as the Supreme Lord. He's saying they are both completely independent, and that is how their mercy also is completely independent. So they can give mercy to anyone they want. They do not consider that whether a person is from a Shudra class or a Brahman class or a Kshatriya or a Vaishya class. If they have to shower mercy, mercy is causeless.
Ishwarera kripa jati kuladi na mane, Vidurera ghare Krishna kharila bhojane. The mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not restricted to the jurisdiction of caste and creed. Vidura was a Shudra, yet Krishna accepted lunch at his home. So here we understand that the society is divided into the four classes or the four varnas based on the modes of material nature. So this we discuss in detail in Bhagavad Gita, that how Shudras predominantly are in mode of ignorance, secondary mode is of passion, then we have the Vaishyas, and then we have the Kshatriyas, and then we have the Brahmanas, who are Brahmana means that he is in predominant mode of goodness. So usually the society which is not very devotional and it wants to follow the Karma Yoga path, so usually the society is organized that way. But when we come to the realm of devotion and Bhakti Yoga, then this is the personality of the Lord. That Lord is not restricted by the rules of Varnashram. Lord is not restricted by the rules of the modes. Lord is the master of the mode. So that's why he is not under the restriction of caste and creed. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving an example here to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and reminding him that actually when Krishna visited the capital, Hastinapur. So when Lord Krishna visited Hastinapur, and actually Duryodhan had made very elaborate arrangements to receive Krishna, and because Krishna went there as the Pandav Doot, so he wanted to impress upon Krishna. But then Krishna abandoned all those arrangements and he actually went to the home of Vidura, who was a Shudra, to accept very simple lunch at his home. Why? Because Krishna is beyond the jurisdiction of caste and creed, and Krishna is under the control of his devotee. He is purchased by the love of his devotee. He comes under the control of the devotees. So this is a very, very important aspect of the personality of God that we have to understand, that Krishna is independent, what was being discussed in the previous verse, and the spiritual master as a representative of Krishna is also beyond such rules. Snehaleshapeksha matra Shri Krishna kripara Snehavashaha na kare Swatantra achara.
Lord Krishna's mercy is dependent only on affection. Being obliged only by affection, Lord Krishna acts very independently. So Krishna's mercy does not depend on the mundane rules and regulations. Also, we cannot force Krishna that I am following 1, 2, 3, 4 rules, so you better take me home, back to Godhead. So we can't force him. It is just by the affection and devotion that the Supreme Lord actually showers his mercy.
Maryada haite koti sukha sneha charane Paramananda bhaya yara nama shravane. In conclusion, dealings in affection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead brings happiness many millions of times greater than dealings with Him in awe and veneration. Simply by hearing the holy name of the Lord, the devotee is merged in transcendental bliss. So there are two things that we need to understand. One, that Lord comes under the control of the devotee due to his love and affection, the devotee's love and affection. And second thing is the spiritual master is like power of attorney. He has the power of attorney from the Lord. So like Lord is distributing his mercy not based on caste and creed, but based on the love and devotion of his devotees. Similarly, the spiritual master also following in the line of the Lord, having his attorney, power of attorney, he also is independent beyond the rules of varnashram. He also gives his mercy whether the person is born in a family of a brahmana or born in a family of dog eater. So that restriction is not there. And in conclusion, it's mentioned here is that if we have a relationship with the Lord, if we deal with the Lord in affection, then that happiness is millions of times greater than dealing with Lord in awe and veneration. And when we chant the holy names of the Lord, then we are merged in such transcendental happiness. Etabali Govindere Kaila Alingana Govinda Karila Prabhu Charana Vandana.
After saying this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced Govinda, and Govinda in turn offered his respectful obeisances unto Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lotus feet.
Prabhu kahe Bhattacharya karaha vichara Guru rakinkara haya manya se amara. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then continued speaking to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Consider this point. The servant of my spiritual master is always respectable for me. Tahare apana seva karaite na yuyaya Guru agya diya chena ki kari upaya.
So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is here a little perplexed, or he is doing that pastime of being perplexed, and he is telling that the servant of my spiritual master is actually respectful. He is in a respectable position. But my spiritual master has given me an instruction that he should go and serve me. So he is taking the advice of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and he is telling ki do some contemplation, think about it and come up with a solution. As such, it is not befitting that the Guru's servant should engage in my personal service. Yet my spiritual master has given this order. What shall I do? Now think and tell me what to do.
भट्टका हे गुरुर आज्ञा हय बलवाना गुरु आज्ञा नालांगिये शास्त्र pramana. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said the order of the spiritual master is very strong, haya balavan, and cannot be disobeyed. Guru agya na langhiye, so that cannot be disobeyed. That is the injunction of the shastra, the revealed scripture. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya immediately gave the conclusion that spiritual master's order is very strong, it should not be disobeyed, and that is the injunction of the revealed scriptures.
Being ordered by his father, Parashuram killed his mother Renuka, just as if she were an enemy. When Lakshman, the younger brother of Lord Ramchandra, heard of this, he immediately engaged himself in the service of his elder brother and accepted his orders. The order of the spiritual master must be obeyed without consideration. So this is the quotation from Raghu Vamsha, and this talks about that incident that Parashuram. Now Parashuram, he was ordered by his father, who was like his spiritual master also. And at the order of his father, what did he do? He actually cut the throat of his own mother. He killed his mother. So now that is a different pastime, but the lesson what we are learning is that spiritual master's instruction can be very, very difficult to follow at certain times. Like this time when somebody is, when the guru is asking to kill your own mother, and yet Parashuram followed that instruction. And when Lakshman heard about this, so Lakshman also started following all what Lord Ramchandra would order him. So he is giving this scriptural reference. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is giving a reference that even at those times when the instruction of the Guru is very difficult to follow, yet that has to be obeyed.
So just don't be disturbed on this. We have to understand that Parshuram is actually an incarnation. So these are pastimes, and of course these are done as per the scriptural injunction, so they have not done any sinful activity.
Nirvicharam guru ragya maya karya mahatmanaha shreyo hi evam bhavatascha mama chaiva visheshataha.
The order of a great personality like a father must be executed without consideration, because there is good fortune in such an order for both of us. In particular, there is good fortune for me. So here we understand that we must follow the order of the father. So now father is a natural teacher, is a natural guru for the child. And here it's mentioned that if we follow his orders, it is good, it will bring good fortune for both of us. So this Lord Ramchandra is telling Mother Sita that the order of my father is what? My father has ordered me to go on Vanvas. Right? So usually a person who's to be crowned next day as the king of the kingdom has been told to go to Vanvas. What a 180-degree turn of events. And here Ramchandra is saying, Lord Ramchandra is saying that a great personality's order should not be given up, because by following their instructions, good fortune will arise both for you and for me. Tabe Mahaprabhu Tanre Kailangikara Apana Shri Anga Seva Viladikara.
After Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced Govinda and engaged him in the service of his personal body. So he accepted Govinda as his personal servant because he wanted to fulfill the order or instructions of his spiritual master. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya presented some Shastric evidence and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was completely convinced. So here is a lesson for all of us that when we are in perplexity, when we are in some confusion, when we do not know what to do, we must consult scriptures and we must consult the devotees whom are at least at our level or a little more advanced than us. So then they can guide us on the basis of scriptures that what is to be done and what has to be avoided.
And also this pastime reveals that we may take birth in a particular kind of a family based on our activities in the past. So we may take birth in a family which is in ignorance or in passion or in goodness. But the Lord disregards all these modes because we are not the modes, we are not the body, we are spirit soul. So Lord's mercy and spiritual master's mercy goes beyond the body, and their mercy is the compassion for the soul.
Prabhura priya bhritya kari sabikare mana sakala vaishnava govind kare samadhana.
Everyone respected Govinda as the dearmost servant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Govinda served all the Vaishnavas and saw to their needs. So here we have this very wonderful devotee, a godbrother of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, following the instructions of his spiritual master. He has become the dearest servant of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and everyone respected him for that. And Govinda also served all the Vaishnavas and saw to their needs as well.
छोटा बड़ा कीर्तनिया दुई हरिदासा रामाई नंदाई रहे गोविंदेर पाशा. Both Haridas Senior and Haridas Junior, who were musicians, as well as Ramai and Nadai, used to stay with Govinda. So Govinda actually got the residence there, and Govinda was accepted in the service of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he was staying with Haridas Junior, Haridas Senior, Ramai and Nandai. गोविंदेर संगे करे प्रभुर सेवाना गोविंदेर भाग्य सीमा नाया वर्णना.
They all remained with Govinda for what purpose? To serve Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, no one could estimate the good fortune of Govinda. So here was this Govinda who was taking care of the transcendental form of the Lord. He was Lord's personal servant, and he was the one who would do all kinds of menial activities to serve the Lord. So how can his good fortune be measured? It was infinite, inestimable good fortune of Govinda. He would see the Lord morning, day and night. Other devotees will come, have darshan and go away. But he was...
And he would take care of all the personal needs.
All the personal. So his service was such amazing service he had. And similarly, we also understand that when we become qualified by our practice, spiritual practices, we advance nicely, we study the scriptures nicely, we serve the Vaishnavas nicely, then we may get the fortune of worshipping the deities. So similarly, like Govinda is serving the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, similarly, we one day can become qualified to take care and serve the deities in all the menial ways.
Actually, that fortune is granted to Govinda. I mean, any answer? How did Govinda get this fortune of serving Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? By his actions, by his humility, by his attitude. He pleased his spiritual master so much. So unless we please our spiritual authorities, this grace does not come to us. But Govinda got this fortune because he could please Ishwar Puri so much. And that is why Ishwar Puri gave this specific instruction, because Ishwar Puri was aware of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So then he gave this personal instruction, and this instruction even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could not refuse. Yeah, if anybody. So he had such strong recommendation that way. So if we get a strong recommendation from our spiritual authorities, then Krishna accepts us. So this is exactly what happened in the case
Krishna
of Govinda.
Cannot refuse.
Krishna will not refuse. Yeah, Krishna, though we read today that he is Swatantra, Parama Swatantra, he is completely independent, and yet he is controlled by his devotees. So here we saw how Ishwar Puri is controlling the desires of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was thinking that Govinda is respectable to me, and how can I accept him as my servant? But then he accepted. Why? Because that was the desire of Ishwar Puri.
Similarly, so the spiritual life, success in spiritual life depends on recommendation. Now we may feel normal material world recommendation not a good thing, we must do it on qualification, but spiritual life, spiritual success is based on recommendation. So our spiritual master, being pleased with us, with our sincerity, with our humble service attitude, he recommends our name to his spiritual master, and that is how our name gets recommended to Srimati Radharani, and then Srimati Radharani recommends this name of this wonderful devotee to Krishna and says, he is a very, very wonderful devotee. This devotee is in fact better than me in serving you. And then Krishna cannot refuse. When Radharani is recommending this one devotee, how can Krishna refuse?
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we will look forward to your learnings from the day, because today was a day of lots and lots of learning. beautiful pastimes and amazing interaction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with all his associates. So thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.